So today I wanted to take a closer look at the new LOD system in Unity. Specifically, my main focus in this video is to see what do I need to do to properly set up this new LOD system. In my last video, I showed how to activate this FBX LOD generation. Now I want to focus on where do we go to get this all working with our zoom level in game. If you haven't seen the previous video, Unity has a new alpha that I've been using. And in this alpha, you're able to go into your FBX file and activate automatic LOD generation. And the results are quite nice. So here, for example, this is a model that I created just to give you an idea of what this looks like. So this is the 3D files. And this model is quite, well, I would call it mid-poly. I'm really glad I didn't spend too much time creating LODs for this. At the time, it was something that I was considering, but this new Unity setup really makes the whole process much easier. So if I select all the mesh data on this model, you'll notice the triangle count is 18,816 in total. And this model has a bunch of different separate pieces. And going back into Unity, I have a few copies of this model, but where we're going to focus our attention on is when you select an FBX file, in this case, I'm selecting Snapjaw, there is a new Generate Mesh LODs. By default, this is off. When you first go into this new Unity version, and it's Unity 6000.2.0A7. When you select your FBX file and you go into the Model tab, there's a new Boolean called Generate Mesh LODs. If you activate this and press apply, it'll generate your LOD levels. So there is the Generate Mesh LOD checkbox, but then there's also two other checkboxes that you have an option of using. One is the checkbox that discards odd levels. So in this case, let me just go ahead and open up and show you what I mean. I've gone into my Snapjaw FBX file. I've selected the turtle arm L, which L stands for the left. So this is the left arm of the turtle. And here there's this new slider that's added after I've generated my LODs. Right now it's on LOD 0, and there is 1,772 triangles. But I can cycle through the different LODs. There's LOD 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If we go back into our checkbox, you'll notice that this discard odd levels, it will remove all the odd levels. So this would be what, 1, 3, and 5. And you're left with the other LODs. So I don't know in what scenario this would be something you want, but it's there. And then the other one is limit LODs. This sets a cap to how many LODs your model can generate. It's on 32 if you activate it. So that's there. You should never need 32 LOD levels, but maybe I'm missing something. I have this off. If I go back to my left arm and bring this up, this has 6 levels. So that's how you generate the LODs. And this is kind of an overview of the previous video. Now, the question I had that I didn't really go over in the last video was, so what do I need to do to get it working with my in-game camera? In this new Unity version, go to Project, Settings, and in the Quality tab, if you scroll down, you'll see this new area where the level of detail section has been updated. In this one, you'll know that now there's an LOD group bias, there is a maximum LOD group level, and there's a mesh LOD threshold. And keep in mind, none of this stuff is officially documented, so I'm just kind of going in there and figuring out myself. Hopefully soon, Unity will release their own official wiki document, and I'll definitely take a look at that and just confirm this stuff. But from what I've seen is this is the only area that you really need to mess with to get it working in-game. And to show you how it differs is I'm going to bring up the old project setting. This is just an empty scene. The Unity version, yeah, this is Unity version 6000.0, not .2. So this is an older version. If I go to the project setting here, under quality, go down, you'll notice that the level of detail only includes LOD bias and maximum LOD levels. You will know that you have this new LOD system if you see LOD group bias in your level of detail setting. I've adjusted this manually with my own setting. I think by default it was set to 101. And let me show you how this works. So the moment you've generated the LOD stuff, there's a default setting here in your quality setting. And if you zoom in, let me just select something so we can, if I zoom out, it's not really that obvious. One methodology that I have for how am I going to set up my LOD thresholds. So starting in a scene view, I'm going to zoom in as close as I want to be when I see the LOD 0. And LOD 0 in this case means the highest detail of this model. And in this case, it's showing me the highest detail of this model when I'm zoomed in at roughly what I think is how much my max zoom is. Now, if I zoom out, as I've zoomed out to the max zoom out of my camera where I want my highest LOD to show, and my highest LOD in this case means my lowest resolution of my mesh, you'll notice that it's not turning on because my mesh LOD threshold is too low. And as I click and drag, you should see more of the mesh showing up. I'm going to zoom in closer. I'm going to change it back to 1 just so you can see. But basically how I set up the number 5 here was I just chose my max zoom out level and I adjusted it until I saw all my highest LOD levels. And that's how I set it up. It's just I ballpark it. And this is not in-game, but it's a good starting ground. And then I'll show you how to adjust it after this. But for now, I want to make sure that you're able to see what's going on here. I'm going to zoom in where you can see the density of the wireframe. I'm going to move this to the right. And you notice how the wireframe is getting reduced. And obviously, this is way too close, or this is way too low for this zoom level. But I'm just showing you, making it clear that this is what you're adjusting here to really get this stuff to show. So 1 was default, 5 is where the level I like. And so far, I like 1 for the LOD group bias, but perhaps as I play around with this more, I'll get a stronger feel for how this all works. But for now, I find myself mostly using mesh LOD threshold. So this is a project-wide setting. So whatever you set here sets it up for all your LODs that you've created using Unity's new system. But let's say you want to spot fix some FBX files. Maybe you set this project-wide setting to get a good baseline, and you don't want it to affect everything in the project. And I'll show you how to do that. Let's say you're fully zoomed in and you're like, this is the project setting, but I want the head of this model to be the lowest LOD version at this zoom level, and only the head. And also, you can do it for the whole thing. But for this demo, I'm going to show you how granular you can get to this because my model is separate pieces. So in this case, I can go here, select the head, or you can select all the meshes. But in this case, I'm just going to select the head. And if you go, I don't need my project tab anymore, so I'm going to close that out. With the head selected, if I go into the inspector and look at the mesh LOD section that's new to this version of Unity, there's the LOD override, and I'll explain it after this. But for now, it's the LOD selection bias. And this is where you can override your project settings. So if I want this to be the lowest resolution LOD, I cranked it up here. It looks terrible, but now I'm overriding the project setting. And in this case, it's basically always the lowest for the head. This is how you can kind of control the different pieces of your model that's not project-wide, but it's saved into this prefab. In this case, I'm going to move it back to 0. I like what I had prior. Now, you might be wondering, why would you even want to do this? Well, in this case, on this model, some pieces are unnecessarily dense. Like, for example, with our current project setting, I can look at here and I would be like, okay, here's my whole model. I can see the wireframe here. Let's say you want the shell here to have less resolution than it currently is showing given the project setting. Then you would select the shell and adjust it with this override here to something lower. And in this case, maybe that's a little too much. You can just adjust it. You can basically make the model more consistent. If you have a model that the resolution distribution across different pieces of that model is not consistent, this is how you can kind of fix some of that in the LODs. It's quite nice. At least that's how I've been using it so far. Now I want to show you what this looks like in gameplay. What is a triangle count? How much is this saving me? So I created this example and I just duplicated this model a bunch of times to show you that it is indeed doing something quite nice. Now for this demo, I'm going to turn off everything but those models. I'm going to run the game, but I want to make sure I show you the stats. Because what I'm going to do is, I'm going to real quick play the game, and I'm going to show you from, here's our stats, and you'll notice that as I'm fully zoomed out, it's showing my triangle count to roughly around 260 to 270K. And this with me fully zoomed out. As I zoom in, that this thing is almost 2 million. So that's with my current setting. And it looks like some of the models aren't even being shown as the highest version. So I'm going to come here just to show you what this could look like. I'm going to send it to, how about, let's do 1. So you notice that your mesh LOD threshold is very important because now I just set it to 1. It's almost 6 million triangles. So we went from, in our best case scenario, 70,000 triangles to 6 million when it's showing all of them with LOD 0. That is the power of this approach. You can get as granular as you want with your LODs and get the look that you want. So I'm going to come back here. I really liked 5 for this specific model. So it's very fascinating as I'm working with this. You'll notice that it's fun to see that my triangle count is lower when I'm zoomed out. And it's mainly because of these meshes over here. A lot of the other meshes that I've created, they're super low poly to begin with because I made those with the intention of it being for mobile. But this model here was not intended for mobile. In this case, it's 2 million. This is like showing me all the high resolution stuff. So let me stop moving around. Yeah, and that's how you can use it. And like, let's say you're just like, you know what? I don't want to use any LODs. Let's say you just want to lock in one of your LODs for your default mesh level at any zoom level. And you can do that. So you would come into your mesh, find all the meshes that you want to set to a fixed LOD level, select them, and in the inspector, come in here where you see LOD override, enable it, and here you get to you can set the LOD level here. So 0 is your highest LOD, and in my case, 4 would be my lowest in this version. It's all fixed. It doesn't change based on LOD levels. I had someone in the comment section ask me if it was possible to export the LODs out from this version of Unity and try to bring them into an older version of Unity. And I did try to use the Unity's export FBX right here to see if I can get it to export something, but that did not work. And I don't know of a way right now to export the LODs individually, because right now they're all baked into the FBX file itself here that we've turned on the LODs for. But the next thing I like to see is a way to extract these LOD files into separate LODs so that we can export them to different software if we want. It's just nice to have more control over this. But if there's already a way that you know of that makes this possible, please let me know, because I'm still reading up on this. There isn't much documentation on this yet.